I let a lost alien stay in my barn, and what it told me about Jesus will terrify you, not because it's a lie, but because it's the truth that's been kept from humanity for 2,000 years, a truth so disturbing that once you hear it, you'll never see reality the same way again. I'm Sarah Chen. I'm 38 years old. I run a small organic farm in rural Oregon, and 3 weeks ago, I discovered something in my barn that shattered everything I thought I knew about God, about Jesus, about why we're really here. What you're about to hear will challenge everything the church ever taught you. This isn't comfortable. This isn't safe. But if you're tired of the lies, if you're ready to see what's really happening, you need to subscribe and turn on notifications right now. Because what I'm about to share will expose a truth that powerful people have buried for millennia. There's no going back after this. Now, let me tell you how it all started. My husband died 2 years ago. Cancer. Stage 4. We prayed. God, how we prayed. Every night on our knees, begging for healing, begging for mercy, begging for just one more year, one more month, one more day. The church told us to have faith. They said if we believed hard enough, if we prayed hard enough, God would answer. They quoted verses. They laid hands on him. They anointed him with oil. And he died anyway, slowly, painfully, afraid. After the funeral, I stopped going to church. I couldn't sit in those pews anymore, listening to sermons about God's love and divine plans. I couldn't sing hymns about grace and mercy when all I felt was abandoned, betrayed, lied to. So I withdrew. I focused on the farm. 20 acres of vegetables, a small greenhouse, some chickens. It was just me now. Me and the silence. Rural Oregon in November is cold and dark. The farm sits at the end of a long gravel road, surrounded by dense forest on 3 sides. My nearest neighbor is 4 miles away. Most nights, I don't see another human being. It's lonely, but it's also what I need. Space to think, space to process, space to figure out if I still believe in anything at all. My routine is simple. Wake up at 6, feed the chickens, check the greenhouse, weed, water, harvest, make dinner, read, sleep, repeat. I talk to myself sometimes, just to hear a human voice. I talk to the chickens. They don't judge. They don't tell me I need more faith. They just cluck and peck and lay eggs. It's honest. It's real. It's more than I got from 38 years of religion. The storm started on a Thursday night, November 18th. I remember because it was the anniversary of the day we got married. 15 years ago. I was sitting in the kitchen, looking at old photos on my phone, crying into a glass of wine. The wind had been picking up all evening, but around 11 o'clock, it turned violent. Rain hammered the roof. The power flickered twice, then died completely. I lit some candles, pulled a blanket around my shoulders, watched the trees bend and sway through the window. That's when I heard it. A sound that didn't belong. It wasn't thunder. It was deeper, more sustained, like something massive hitting the ground with tremendous force. The whole house shook. Pictures rattled on the walls. My wine glass slid across the table, and then silence. Just the rain and wind again. I sat there in the candlelight, my heart pounding. Probably a tree falling. We had some old Douglas firs that were barely standing. The storm probably took one down. I'd deal with it in the morning. I finished my wine, blew out the candles, went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. Not danger exactly. Just wrong. Different. Like the air pressure had changed. Like the world had shifted slightly off its axis. At 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep. I pulled on my rain jacket and boots, grabbed a flashlight, went outside. The storm was still raging, but I needed to check, needed to know what had fallen. The chickens were going crazy in their coop, making sounds I'd never heard before. Not scared, agitated, alert. I walked past the chicken coop, past the greenhouse. The barn was at the back of the property, an old structure I mostly used for storage. Tools, supplies, things I didn't need in the house. As I got closer, I saw something that made me stop dead. Light. Faint bluish light coming from inside the barn through the gaps in the wooden slats. I hadn't left any lights on. The power was out anyway. What the hell was glowing in my barn? My first thought was fire. Some kind of electrical short. But the light wasn't flickering like flames. It was steady, pulsing gently. I approached slowly, my flashlight beam cutting through the rain. My hand was shaking. Every instinct screamed at me to go back to the house. Call someone, call the sheriff, call anyone. But who would come out here in the middle of a storm at 2 a.m? And what would I even say? There's a weird light in my barn? I reached the barn door, put my hand on the cold metal handle, took a deep breath, and pulled it open. The bluish light flooded out, so bright I had to shield my eyes. And then I saw it, saw what had crashed into my property during the storm, saw what was waiting inside, and my entire understanding of reality began to crumble. In the center of my barn, taking up nearly the entire space, was something that shouldn't exist. A craft, smooth, metallic, but not like any metal I'd ever seen. It seemed to shift colors in the light, from silver to dark blue to something almost liquid. The shape was wrong too. Not a circle, not a triangle, something in between. Organic, like it had grown rather than been built. And it was damaged. A massive crack ran down one side, exposing what looked like circuitry, but it glowed and pulsed like living tissue. I stood frozen in the doorway, rain soaking through my jacket, my flashlight hanging useless at my side. My brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. This isn't real. This can't be real. I'm dreaming. I'm having a breakdown. The stress, the loneliness, the grief, it's all finally broken me. But the cold rain on my face felt real. The smell of ozone and something else, something sharp and foreign, that felt real too. And then I heard it. Not with my ears, inside my head. A voice that wasn't a voice, more like a thought that wasn't mine. Please, help me. I stumbled backward, hitting the barn door frame. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would burst. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice cracking. "Show yourself!" The light from the craft pulsed brighter, and then I saw movement, something emerging from behind the damaged section. My flashlight beam found it, and I felt every muscle in my body lock up with pure primal terror. It was about 5 feet tall, thin, too thin, with limbs that were slightly too long for its body. The skin was grayish, almost translucent, and I could see what looked like veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. The head was larger than a human's, more rounded. And the eyes, God, the eyes, huge, black, like pools of ink that reflected my flashlight beam. No whites, no pupils, just black. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My legs wouldn't move. I was paralyzed, staring at this impossible thing standing in my barn. Every horror movie I'd ever seen flashed through my mind. Every alien abduction story. Every nightmare. This was how people disappeared. This was how it ended. "I'm not going to hurt you." The voice in my head again. Gentle, almost apologetic. "I'm injured. My ship is damaged. I need help." "Get out," I finally managed to whisper. "Get out of my barn. Get off my property. I'll call the police. I'll call the military. Please, listen to me. I crashed during the storm. My navigation failed. I didn't mean to land here. I didn't mean to frighten you. But I can't leave yet. The ship needs repairs. And I'm injured. As if to prove the point, the being took a step forward and nearly collapsed. I saw dark fluid, almost black, dripping from its side. It caught itself against a wooden support beam, the huge eyes fixed on me, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not menace, not threat. Pain, fear. It was afraid of me. "You're bleeding," I heard myself say. The words came out automatically, bypassing my terror. Years of being a farmer's wife, of dealing with injured animals, of patching up my husband when he cut himself on equipment. The instinct to help kicked in before my rational mind could stop it. Yes. I was thrown during the crash. Something punctured through. I need to seal it, but I'm too weak. I need assistance. "I don't know how to help you," I said, still pressed against the doorframe. "I don't know what you are. I don't know if you're even real. This could be a hallucination. I could be losing my mind." "You're not losing your mind, Sarah." I froze. "How do you know my name?" "I can sense surface thoughts, memories. I see your grief, your pain, your loss. I see the man you loved, the faith you lost, the questions that keep you awake at night." Tears started streaming down my face. "Get out of my head. Stay out of my head." "I'm sorry. I don't mean to intrude, but I need you to understand. I'm not a demon. I'm not here to harm you. I'm just a traveler who made a mistake, who needs help. Please." I looked at this impossible being, injured, vulnerable, asking for help in my barn in the middle of a storm. Every logical part of my brain screamed at me to run, to call for help, to get as far away as possible. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was wrong. But another part of me, the part that had spent 2 years drowning in isolation and grief, the part that had prayed for something, anything, to make sense of this meaningless existence, that part whispered something different. What if this is why? What if this moment, this choice, is what everything has been leading to? "If I help you," I said slowly, "will you leave? As soon as you're healed and your ship is fixed?" "Yes, I promise. I'll leave and never return. You'll never see me again." "And you won't hurt me? You won't do whatever it is aliens do to people?" "I won't hurt you. You have my word, for whatever that means to you." I stood there in the doorway for a long moment. Rain, wind, the impossible craft glowing in my barn, the impossible being bleeding dark fluid onto my barn floor, and I made a choice that would change everything. I stepped inside. I closed the door behind me, and I walked toward the creature, my hands shaking but my decision made. "Show me where you're injured," I said. "Let me see what I can do." The being moved slowly toward me, each step deliberate and careful. Up close, I could see the wound more clearly, a jagged tear in its side, about 6 inches long. The dark fluid that leaked from it had an iridescent quality, like oil on water. It didn't smell like blood. It smelled like copper and something else, something electric. "I don't have medical supplies for whatever you are," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have a first aid kit in the house, bandages, antiseptic, but I don't know if that will even work on you." "It will help. The physiology is different, but the principles are similar. I just need to stop the bleeding and keep it clean while my body heals itself." "Your body heals itself?" "Faster than yours, but not instantly. I need time, maybe 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days. This thing was going to be in my barn for 3 or 4 days. I felt panic rising in my chest again. I need to get supplies from the house. Don't go anywhere. I won't. I can barely stand. I ran back through the rain to the house, my mind racing. This is insane. You're helping an alien, an actual alien. What if it's lying? What if it's dangerous? What if this is some kind of test? But even as the thoughts came, I kept moving, grabbed the first aid kit from the bathroom, found clean towels, a bottle of water, some protein bars. I didn't know if it ate food, but it seemed polite to offer. When I got back to the barn, the being had slumped against the damaged craft. Those massive black eyes tracked me as I approached. I knelt down beside it, spreading out the towels on the dirt floor. "Okay," I said, opening the first aid kit with trembling hands. "I'm going to try to clean this. Tell me if I'm hurting you. I won't feel pain the way you do, but I'll tell you if you're causing damage." I used water and gauze to clean around the wound. The dark fluid came away easily, revealing what looked like skin underneath, but smoother, almost crystalline in structure. I applied antiseptic. The being didn't react. I covered the wound with the largest bandage I had, though it barely covered the tear. "Thank you. That will help significantly." "What about your ship?" I asked, looking up at the damaged craft. "Can you fix it?" "Given time, yes. The damage looks worse than it is. Mostly external plating and a ruptured energy cell. I have repair tools inside, but I need to heal first before I can work." I stood up, backing away a few steps. The immediate crisis was handled. Now reality was setting in. There was an alien in my barn, an alien from somewhere in space, and I had just agreed to hide it for days. "Where are you from? How did you even get here?" "A star system you call Zeta Reticuli, about 39 light years from Earth. We've been observing your world for a very long time." Observing. The word sent chills down my spine. "You mean watching us, spying on us?" "Observing, studying. We're interested in developing civilizations. Humanity is at a critical point in its evolution. We watch many worlds." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling exposed. "Are there others? Other aliens watching Earth?" "Yes. Several species. Some benevolent, some neutral, some less friendly. We try to prevent interference, but we don't always succeed." My mind was spinning. Everything I thought I knew about the universe was wrong. We weren't alone. We'd never been alone. Why crash here? Why my farm? The storm damaged my navigation systems. I was trying to reach a safe landing zone, but I lost control. "I'm sorry. I didn't choose this. I didn't want to involve you." "And what do you want from Earth? From us?" "Nothing sinister. We want you to survive, to evolve, to join the larger community of conscious beings, but you're not ready yet. You're still too violent, too divided, too afraid." I felt a surge of anger. "So you're just watching us kill each other? Watching us suffer? That's pretty cold for advanced beings." "We can't interfere. It's cosmic law. Every species must choose its own path. If we intervene, we rob you of growth, of the lessons you need to learn." "Lessons," I said bitterly. "Is that what my husband's death was? A lesson?" The being was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm sorry for your loss. Death is painful for your species. You don't remember that consciousness continues. You don't remember where you came from or where you're going. That amnesia makes grief unbearable." "Don't remember?" I stared at it. "What are you talking about?" Before I could stop myself, the question I'd been avoiding came out. the question that had been haunting me since I opened the barn door. Are you a demon? Is this some kind of test from Satan? The being's large head tilted slightly. No, Sarah. I'm not a demon. I'm not fallen angel. I'm not sent by any malevolent force. I'm a biological being from another world. That's all. But the Bible says many things, some true, some metaphorical, some misunderstood. But I promise you, I'm not what your religious texts warn against. How do I know you're not lying? How do I know this isn't exactly what evil would say? You don't. You have to choose to trust or not trust. But ask yourself this: if I wanted to harm you, why would I ask permission? Why would I show you my vulnerability? Why would I respect your free will? I had no answer for that. I sank down onto a hay bale, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off. This is too much. This is all too much. I know. And I'm sorry you were pulled into this. But since you are, let me be honest with you. Completely honest. I do need your help to heal and repair my ship. But there's another reason I'm glad it was your barn I crashed into. What reason? Because you're asking the right questions. Because you're ready to hear certain truths. Truths about Jesus. About what really happened 2,000 years ago. About what's happening now. My blood went cold. What about Jesus? The being's dark eyes held mine. That's what I need to tell you. But not tonight. You're exhausted. You're overwhelmed. Get some rest. Come back in the morning, and I'll show you something the church has hidden for millennia. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain finally fade to nothing. My mind kept replaying everything. The crash, the craft, the being, the wound, the conversation, and those final words, something the church has hidden for millennia, about Jesus. Part of me wanted to pack a bag and leave, drive to my sister's place in Portland, pretend none of this happened. But I couldn't. Something held me there. Curiosity, maybe, or desperation. For 2 years, I'd been asking God for answers, for meaning, for anything to make sense of the pain. And now, something was offering answers, even if that something was an alien in my barn. I went back at dawn. The being was exactly where I'd left it, propped against the craft. The bandage was already soaked through with that dark, iridescent fluid. I need to change that, I said, kneeling down with fresh supplies. Thank you. It's healing well, faster than I expected. As I worked, replacing the bandage, I noticed details I'd missed in the chaos of the night before. The being's hands had 4 long fingers instead of 5. The joints bent in slightly wrong places, and there was something about the eyes, the way they reflected light, that reminded me of a cat's eyes. Alien. Utterly alien. Yet somehow I wasn't afraid anymore. Over the next 3 days, I fell into a routine. Morning visits to change the bandage and bring food, though the being ate very little, just small amounts of the fruit I offered. Afternoon visits to check on the ship repairs, which the being had started despite still being weak. Evening visits that turned into long conversations. We talked about everything. The being told me about its world, cities that grew like coral reefs, technology that worked through consciousness rather than machines, a society that had transcended war and violence thousands of years ago. I told it about Earth, about farming, about the strange human need to own land and build walls, about our endless conflicts. On the 3rd evening, I brought my Bible. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to test something. Maybe I wanted to see how the being would react. I set it on a hay bale while I checked the wound. The healing was remarkable. The tear had closed to a thin line. The dark fluid had stopped completely. I see you brought your holy book. The voice in my mind was gentle, curious. I used to read it every day, I said, not looking up from the bandage. Haven't opened it in 2 years. Because your husband died. Because God didn't answer. We prayed. We believed. We had faith. And it made no difference. He died anyway. And you feel betrayed. I finally looked up at those massive black eyes. Wouldn't you? I gave my whole life to this. 38 years of church every Sunday, Bible studies, prayer groups, mission trips, tithing, even when we could barely afford it. And when I needed God most, when I begged for just one miracle, nothing. Silence. The being was quiet for a long moment. Then, may I ask you something? Go ahead. The cross around your neck, you still wear it. Why? My hand went automatically to the small silver cross hanging from a chain. My husband had given it to me on our first anniversary. I'd worn it every day since. Habit, I guess. Or maybe hope that I'm wrong. That it meant something. Do you want to know why your prayers weren't answered? The question hit me like a physical blow. I stood up, backing away. You don't know anything about my prayers. You don't know anything about my faith. You're right, I don't. But I know about Jesus. The real Jesus, not the version the church teaches. And if you're willing to listen, I can tell you why your prayers were never going to work the way you thought. Why the entire foundation of what you were taught is incomplete. Incomplete. I repeated, anger rising. You're saying Christianity is wrong. I'm saying it's been altered, simplified, weaponized for control. The truth about Jesus, about what he was, about what he taught, it was too dangerous, too empowering. So it was buried, hidden, replaced with doctrines of sin and worthiness and external salvation. I felt tears burning my eyes. And you know the truth? You, an alien, know more about Jesus than 2,000 years of theologians? I was there, Sarah. The words hung in the air between us. I stared at the being, my heart pounding. What do you mean you were there? We've been observing Earth for over 50,000 years. We were there when Jesus walked among you. We recorded everything. We have documentation, visual records, data that your species lost or destroyed or never had. And what I know will terrify you. Because it means everything you were taught about salvation, about the second coming, about God himself, is not what you think. My legs felt weak. I sat down hard on the hay bale. I don't know if I want to hear this. You spent 2 years angry at God for not answering your prayers. Don't you want to know why? Don't you want to understand what really happened? And what if it destroys what little faith I have left? What if it gives you something better? What if the truth, as terrible as it is, finally makes everything make sense? I looked at my Bible sitting on the hay bale, then at the being, nearly healed now, watching me with those impossible eyes, then at the cross around my neck. Everything I'd built my life on was already broken. What did I have to lose? Okay, I whispered. Tell me everything. The being shifted position, its dark eyes never leaving mine. Before I begin, I need you to understand something. This truth has been kept hidden for a reason. Once you know, you can't unknow. Your entire reality will shift. Are you absolutely certain you're ready? I thought about my husband dying afraid, about 38 years of unanswered prayers, about the emptiness that had consumed me since the funeral. Whatever this being was about to tell me couldn't be worse than the void I was already living in. I'm ready, I said. Tell me about Jesus. The being settled into a more comfortable position, its healing wound barely visible now. When I said we've been observing Earth, I mean we've been watching your species develop from primitive tribes to what you are now. We've witnessed your wars, your religions, your technological advances. We've recorded it all. Why? I asked. Why watch us? Because you're one of thousands of developing species in this galaxy alone, and you're at a critical stage, the stage where you either destroy yourselves or evolve into something greater. We've seen it go both ways on other worlds. We want to understand what makes the difference. I pulled my jacket tighter around myself. The morning was cold, and this conversation was making me colder. And Jesus? You said you were there during his time? Yes. 2,000 years ago, give or take. We had observation posts, recording equipment far more advanced than anything you have now. Technology that could capture not just images and sound, but energy fields, consciousness patterns, molecular structures, everything. So you have, what? Videos of Jesus? More than that, complete records. Every word he spoke, every place he went, every person he touched, every miracle he performed, everything the Gospels recorded and everything they didn't, or couldn't, or chose not to. My skepticism flared. If you have all this evidence, why hasn't anyone seen it? Why hasn't your species shared it with us? Because we don't interfere, Sarah. We observe. We document. But we don't insert ourselves into developing civilizations. It violates cosmic law. You have to evolve on your own terms. But you're telling me now, isn't that interference? The being's large head tilted slightly. Perhaps. But circumstances have led us here. You helped me when you could have turned me into your authorities. You showed compassion. And you're asking the right questions. Sometimes the universe arranges these moments. I wasn't satisfied with that answer, but I let it go. Okay, so you have records of Jesus. What do they show? The being was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, the voice in my mind was different. Heavier. Weighted with something I couldn't identify. They show that Jesus of Nazareth was not what your church teaches. He was not the Son of God in the way you understand it. He was not sent to die for your sins. He was not uniquely divine in a way that separates him from the rest of humanity. I felt anger rising hot in my chest. Then what was he? Just a good teacher? A prophet? That's what people who don't believe say. I spent my whole life believing he was God incarnate, that he was salvation, that he was the only way to heaven. He was something else entirely, something your theology couldn't comprehend, something that had to be simplified, sanitized, made palatable for primitive minds. Primitive, I repeated, standing up. You're calling us primitive. Compared to species that are millions of years ahead of you, yes, that's not an insult. It's just a fact. 2,000 years ago, humans were even more primitive. They had no concept of other worlds, of other civilizations, of the vastness of the universe. How do you explain advanced concepts to people who think the earth is flat and the sky is a dome? Through parables, I said, remembering Sunday school. Jesus taught through parables because people couldn't understand direct teaching. Exactly. But even the parables were edited, changed, filtered through the understanding of people who didn't fully grasp what they were witnessing. I paced back and forth in front of the being. So what are you saying? That Jesus was misunderstood? I'm saying Jesus was one of us. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. I stopped pacing, turned slowly to face the being. What did you just say? Jesus was one of us, not human, Not in the way you think. He was from our world, our species, sent on a mission to Earth. No. The word came out as a whisper. No, that's not. That's impossible. That's blasphemy. Is it? Or is it the truth that's been hidden because it's too frightening, too destabilizing? Jesus was born of a virgin, I said, my voice shaking. Born in Bethlehem, grew up in Nazareth. He was human and fully divine. He was born, yes, but the circumstances of that birth were not what you've been told. The virgin birth wasn't a miracle in the supernatural sense. It was advanced technology, artificial insemination with hybrid DNA, part human, part us, creating a bridge between species. I felt like the ground was disappearing beneath my feet. Stop talking. This is insane. You're trying to destroy my faith. You're trying to make me doubt everything. I'm trying to show you the truth. A truth that explains why your prayers didn't work. Why the theology you were taught is incomplete. Why Jesus said things that never made sense to the church, so they explained them away or ignored them completely. Like what? I demanded. What did Jesus say that the church ignored? He said you would do greater works than he did. He said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said you are God's. He said all this, but the church made him unique, special, unreachable. They made him an idol to worship rather than an example to follow. Because if people understood what he really was, what he really taught, they wouldn't need the church anymore. Tears were streaming down my face. You're saying he was an alien, that Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, was an extraterrestrial. I'm saying he was a hybrid, a being designed to carry specific DNA codes, specific consciousness programs, and plant them into humanity. His teachings weren't about sin and salvation. They were about activation, about awakening dormant potential in human genetics. I don't believe you, I said, but my voice was weak. I can't believe you. If I believe this, then everything I've built my life on is a lie. Not a lie. An incomplete truth. The being's voice was gentle now. Sarah, I know this is terrifying. I know it's shattering your worldview. But what if I could prove it? What if I could show you recordings of Jesus that prove everything I'm saying? Would you look? Would you have the courage to see the truth? I sank down onto the hay bale, my body shaking. Every fiber of my being wanted to run, to refuse, to cling to the comfortable lies I'd been taught. But another part of me, the part that had spent 2 years drowning in unanswered questions, needed to know. Show me, I whispered. Show me your proof. The being moved toward its craft, those long fingers touching panels that glowed at its contact. Come closer. You need to see this clearly. I stood on shaking legs and walked toward the damaged ship. Up close, I could see symbols etched into the surface, constantly shifting and rearranging themselves. The being touched a specific sequence, and suddenly, the air in front of us began to shimmer. What is that? I asked, taking a step back. Holographic projection. Visual record stored in the ship's memory banks. This isn't a video in the way you understand it. This is a complete dimensional capture. Light, sound, electromagnetic fields, consciousness frequencies. Everything that existed in that moment preserved exactly as it was. The shimmer intensified and then solidified into an image so real I could have sworn I could touch it. I was looking at a dusty road, Middle Eastern architecture, people in robes walking past, and the detail was impossible. I could see individual grains of sand, individual threads in the fabric of their clothing. This wasn't any recording technology I'd ever seen. Where is this? When is this? Galilee. Year 33 of the Common Era. As you measure time, watch. The scene began to move. People walking, talking, living their daily lives 2,000 years ago. And then I saw him, walking down that dusty road, surrounded by a small group of followers. My breath caught in my throat. That's Jesus. Yes. I stared at the figure in the hologram. He looked how I'd always imagined. Dark hair, beard, simple robes. But there was something about him that the paintings and movies never captured. Something in the way he moved. Too fluid, too graceful. And his eyes, even in this projection, they were different. Darker than they should be. Larger than they should be. He doesn't look fully human, I whispered, because he wasn't. The being's voice was matter of fact. His mother Mary was human, but his father was not. We used advanced technology to implant hybrid DNA into her womb. She believed it was divine intervention, an angel's message, and in a way it was. But the angel was one of our ships. The message was delivered through technology you would call telepathy. I felt sick. No. The Bible says the Holy Spirit. The Bible tries to explain something that happened using the only language available at the time. Divine intervention. Miraculous conception. But Sarah, think about it logically. If an advanced species wanted to create a hybrid, wanted to introduce specific genetic material into a human population, wouldn't it look exactly like a virgin birth? The hologram shifted. Now I was seeing Jesus as a child, playing with other children. But even then, there was something different. He moved differently, learned differently. The other children looked at him strangely. He knew he was different, the being continued. From a young age, he knew he didn't fit. The human DNA gave him a body, emotions, the ability to connect with your species. But the other half, our DNA, gave him abilities, enhanced consciousness, the capacity to manipulate energy fields, access to knowledge that should have been impossible. The miracles, I said, my voice barely audible. Were technology and enhanced biology working together? Watch this. The hologram changed again, Jesus as an adult now, standing in front of a man covered in sores. Leprosy, I recognized from Sunday school lessons. Jesus reached out and touched the man. And I saw it. Saw what no painting or biblical description ever captured. A flash of light. So brief I almost missed it, emanating from Jesus' hand. And the sores vanished. Skin healed instantly. The man fell to his knees weeping. What was that light? I asked. Targeted energy manipulation. Jesus could control electromagnetic frequencies at a cellular level. He could accelerate healing, rearrange matter, influence consciousness. Your scriptures call these miracles. We call it advanced biological capability, enhanced by technology. Technology? What technology? The being touched the panel again. The hologram zoomed in on Jesus' hand, and there, just visible beneath the skin, I saw something. Tiny filaments, glowing faintly, networked through his entire body. We implanted microscopic technology in his cellular structure. It interfaced with his nervous system, his brain, his energy field. It amplified his natural hybrid abilities, allowed him to do things that appeared supernatural to primitive humans. I backed away from the hologram, my hands over my mouth. You're saying Jesus was, what, a cyborg? An android? Neither. He was fully biological, fully alive, fully conscious, but enhanced. Think of it like glasses that help you see better. The technology helped him access abilities that were already coded in his hybrid DNA. Why? I demanded. Why create him? Why send him here? Because humanity needed an upgrade. The being's voice was calm, almost clinical. Your species was developing, but slowly. You were trapped in cycles of violence, fear, limited consciousness. We needed to introduce new genetic codes, new consciousness patterns. Codes that would lie dormant for generations but eventually activate. Jesus was the delivery system. Delivery system, I repeated numbly. The hologram changed again. Now I saw Jesus teaching, the Sermon on the Mount. Crowds gathered around him, and as he spoke, I saw something else. Waves of energy emanating from him, invisible to the naked eye, but captured by the being's technology, rippling out over the crowd, entering their bodies, their minds. What is that? What's he doing to them? Planting consciousness codes. Every person who heard him speak, who touched him, who was healed by him, received genetic markers, dormant programs written into their DNA, programs designed to activate in future generations when humanity reached a certain developmental stage. Programs, I whispered. You're saying he was programming people. Teaching is programming, Sarah. Every word, every parable, every blessing was carefully designed to alter consciousness patterns, to prepare humanity for evolution, to plant seeds that would grow over millennia. I watched Jesus in the hologram, speaking to the crowds, touching the sick, and I felt everything I'd ever believed, shattering like glass. This wasn't the Jesus of my childhood. This wasn't the gentle Savior who loved everyone unconditionally. This was something else, something planned, something engineered. His teachings, I said, love your enemies, turn the other cheek, the kingdom is within you. Were those real? Or were they just programming commands? They were real truths. But yes, they were also programming designed to override humanity's base instincts, violence, tribalism, fear-based thinking. He was literally rewiring human consciousness through frequency transmission disguised as spiritual teaching. The hologram froze on Jesus's face, those two dark, too large eyes staring out at the crowd. And I saw it now, saw what I'd never seen in any painting or movie. He didn't look entirely human. He looked like something in between, something other. My legs gave out. I collapsed onto the barn floor, sobbing. Everything I'd believed, everything I'd built my life on, it was all based on a lie, or not a lie exactly, but an incomplete truth that had been twisted into mythology. The being didn't move. It let me cry, let me process. When my sobs finally subsided into ragged breathing, its voice came gently into my mind. There's more, Sarah. The worst part. Do you want me to continue? How can there be worse? I asked, wiping my face with my sleeve. You've already destroyed everything. Because what I've told you so far is just the setup. The crucifixion, the resurrection, the promise of his return. That's where the real plan unfolds. That's what the church has hidden. That's what will terrify you most. I looked up at the being, my eyes burning. Tell me. Just tell me everything. I can't hurt more than I already do. The hologram shifted again. Now I saw Jesus in Jerusalem, the final week. I recognized the scenes from Scripture, the temple, the money changers, the Last Supper, Gethsemane, and then the arrest. The crucifixion was not an accident, the being said. It was not humanity's sin that killed him. It was the plan all along. From the moment we created him, we knew how it would end. You knew he would be killed? We orchestrated it, not directly. We didn't force anyone's hand, but we knew human nature. We knew religious authorities would see him as a threat. We knew Rome would execute him. We created a being who was designed to trigger that exact response. I stared at the hologram, Jesus carrying the cross, falling, the crown of thorns, The nails. Why? If you created him, if he was so important, why let him die? Because his death was necessary for the final stage of the plan. Watch. The scene changed to the crucifixion itself, and I had to look away. I'd seen paintings, movies, depictions my whole life. But this was real. This was actually happening in front of me. The pain on his face, the blood, the gasping for breath. His blood entering the earth was critical, the being continued. Every drop that fell, every cell that broke down and absorbed into the soil, carried the genetic codes, carried the programming, spread it into the planetary consciousness grid. Planetary consciousness grid? What are you talking about? Everything is connected, Sarah. The earth itself is a living consciousness. Soil, water, air, all interconnected. When Jesus' blood entered the earth, it became part of that grid, part of the planetary memory, accessible to every human born afterward. The hologram showed Jesus dying, his final breath, and then something I'd never heard in any biblical account, a sound, low frequency, pulsing, coming from his body as he died. That's the activation signal, the being explained. The moment of death released an electromagnetic pulse that rippled across the planet. Every human alive at that moment felt it, even if they didn't consciously understand what happened. A shift in collective consciousness. And the resurrection? I asked, dreading the answer. The hologram jumped forward. 3 days, the tomb, and then I saw it, saw what really happened. Light descending from the sky, not from heaven, from a ship, the being species. The craft hovered over the tomb. A beam of light penetrated the stone, and when it withdrew, Jesus' body was gone. We extracted him, the being said simply. His mission was complete. The codes were planted. The blood had entered the earth. His death activated the first stage. We retrieved his body and restored it. Restored it? You mean he was actually dead? Clinically, yes. But death is not permanent for someone with his biology and our technology. We reversed the cellular damage, brought him back to full function. He appeared to his followers for 40 days, you call it the ascension period, to confirm the resurrection, to solidify the mythology. And then we took him home. I felt like I was going to be sick. So he's not in heaven. He's not sitting at the right hand of God. He's on your planet. He's one of you. He's returned to his origin. Yes, and he's waiting. Waiting for what? For the activation. For the return. But Sarah, this is what you need to understand. The return is not what Christians believe. He's not coming back physically. He's not descending from clouds with trumpets and angels. Then what is the return? I whispered. The being's dark eyes held mine. The return is the activation of the dormant DNA codes in humans who carry them. Millions of people alive right now have his genetic markers in their cells, passed down through 2,000 years of bloodlines, and these codes are waking up, now, in your lifetime. I felt cold all over. What do you mean waking up? The consciousness programs he planted are activating. People are experiencing spontaneous awakenings, enhanced intuition, telepathic abilities, healing capacities, connection to higher consciousness. They're becoming what he was, what humanity was always meant to become. But the church says, the church was created to prevent this. The being's voice turned harder. Think about it, Sarah. After Jesus left, who took control of his message? Who decided what books belonged in the Bible and what books were destroyed? Who created doctrines of original sin and unworthiness? The Roman Empire, I said slowly. Constantine. Yes. And why would an empire want people to awaken to their own power? Why would any control structure want humans to realize they carry divine DNA? That they don't need priests or churches or intermediaries? The hologram showed centuries passing, churches being built, books being burned, councils deciding doctrine, people being executed for heresy. They took his message of empowerment and turned it into a religion of dependence. They took his demonstration of human potential and made him an unreachable idol. They took his promise of collective awakening and turned it into waiting for external salvation, all to keep people asleep, all to prevent the activation. But why? I stood up, anger replacing horror. Why would people do that? Power, control, money. The same reasons people always corrupt truth. If people understand they have divine DNA, they don't need the church, they don't pay tithes, they don't obey blindly, they become free. And freedom is dangerous to those who profit from slavery. I looked at the cross around my neck, symbol of his death, symbol of sacrifice, and suddenly it felt different, heavy, like chains rather than salvation. You're saying 2,000 years of Christianity has been designed to keep us from becoming what Jesus was showing us we could be. Yes, and it worked. Most humans still believe they're sinful, unworthy, small. They're still waiting for Jesus to save them when the salvation was always internal, when the codes were always in their DNA, waiting to activate. And now, I asked, my voice breaking, what happens now? Now the activation is happening whether the church likes it or not. The time is right. The collective consciousness has reached critical mass, and millions of people are waking up to their true nature. The return is happening through them, through you, through me. I stepped back. I don't have any codes. I don't have any abilities. The being tilted its head. Sarah, why do you think you were the one I crashed near? Why do you think you could hear my telepathic voice when most humans can't? Why do you think you're able to handle these truths without completely breaking? My hand went to my chest. No. Yes. You carry the markers. And they're activating. Have been since your husband died. That trauma, that crisis of faith, it cracked you open, made space for the codes to begin expressing. I felt the barn spinning. Everything I'd believed was a lie, and everything I was something I never knew. The savior I'd worshipped my whole life was an alien hybrid. The salvation I'd sought was programmed DNA, and I was part of it, part of the plan, part of the return. I need air, I gasped. I need to get out of here. I stumbled out of the barn into the morning light. The cold air hit my face but did nothing to clear the spinning in my head. I bent over, hands on my knees, trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to hold on to something real. The being followed me out, moving easily now, the wound completely healed. I know this is overwhelming. Its voice came gently. Overwhelming. I spun around, anger exploding. You just told me my entire faith is a lie, that Jesus was an alien experiment, that I'm some kind of programmed carrier, and you think that's just overwhelming? Then don't believe me. Demand proof. Test everything I've told you. How? I shouted. How do I prove any of this? You showed me holograms that could be fake. You told me stories that could be lies. How do I know any of this is real? The being's large eyes studied me. What would convince you? What proof would be absolute? I thought about it. My mind raced through everything I'd learned in 38 years of faith. Show me a miracle, not a hologram, not a story. Actually demonstrate something Jesus did. If you have his technology, his abilities, prove it. What would you like to see? Healing, I said immediately. You said Jesus healed through energy manipulation. Do it. Heal something. I have nothing here to heal. then break something and fix it. I was grasping now, desperate. Do anything that proves this isn't just elaborate lies. The being walked to a dead tree at the edge of my property, an old oak that had died last summer. Lightning strike. The trunk was blackened, branches bare and brittle. It touched the trunk with one long-fingered hand. Watch. At first, nothing happened. Then I saw it. Light emanating from the being's palm, soft, bluish. The same light I'd seen in the holograms of Jesus. And the tree, the dead tree, began to change. Green spread from where the being touched. Leaves budded. Branches that had been dry and cracking filled with life. In less than a minute, the dead tree was alive again. Full and green and impossible. I walked closer, touching the leaves with shaking hands. They were real, warm, living. How? I whispered, the same way Jesus did it. Cellular regeneration through targeted electromagnetic frequency. Death is just a state of matter. Life is just a different frequency. When you know how to manipulate energy at that level, you can shift between states. But that's playing God. No, it's understanding the physics of consciousness. The being turned to face me. Your scientists are beginning to grasp this. Quantum mechanics, the observer effect, consciousness collapsing wave functions. Prayer, real prayer, works the same way. Prayer? I looked at the being. You're going to tell me prayer is science too? Everything is science, Sarah. Even what you call miracles. When you pray, you're not begging an external deity. You're transmitting frequency. Thought creates electromagnetic waves. Emotion amplifies those waves. Together, they interact with the quantum field and influence probability. That's not how prayer works. You ask God and He answers or doesn't. No. You broadcast a frequency, and reality responds. But most prayers fail because humans broadcast from a frequency of lack. I don't have this. Please give me this. That frequency attracts more lack. Jesus understood this. That's why He gave thanks before miracles. He broadcast from a frequency of already having, and reality matched that frequency. I thought about all my prayers for my husband. Please heal him. Please don't let him die. Please, God, I need him. All from a place of desperation, of not having, of lack. So my prayers didn't work because I was doing it wrong. Your prayers were broadcasting a signal of disease, death, loss, and you received exactly what you transmitted. I'm sorry, but it's physics, not divine judgment. I sank down onto the ground, my back against the living tree that had been dead minutes ago. Show me more. Show me my DNA. Show me these codes you say I carry. The being returned to the barn. I followed. It touched panels on the craft, and a new hologram appeared. Not a scene from history. A molecular structure. Spiraling. Glowing. This is human DNA. Standard structure. 23 chromosome pairs. But watch what happens when I filter for the markers. The image shifted. Certain sections lit up. Glowing bright gold against the standard blue. These are the codes Jesus planted. They exist in approximately 30% of current human population. Inherited through bloodlines that had direct or indirect contact with him or his immediate followers. They're dormant in most, but they're activating in some. And I have them? Yes. The being touched another panel. A different DNA strand appeared, structurally similar, but with even more golden sections. This is yours. You have a higher concentration than average. You're what we call a primary carrier. I stared at my own DNA floating in holographic space. What do? These codes? They unlock abilities, enhanced intuition, telepathic reception, energy manipulation, accelerated healing, connection to collective consciousness. Each code activates different capabilities. You haven't accessed most of yours yet, but you will. I don't want them, I said. I don't want any of this. You don't have a choice. They're activating whether you accept it or not. It's already begun. When? When did it start? When your husband died. The being's voice softened. That trauma cracked open your consciousness, made space for the codes to begin expressing. His death wasn't random, Sarah. It was a catalyst, arranged on a level beyond physical causation to prepare you for this awakening. Something broke inside me then. I thought of my husband's final days, his pain, his fear, my desperate prayers, and all of it was designed, planned, arranged to crack me open like an egg so alien DNA could activate. No, I whispered. No, you don't get to tell me his death meant something. You don't get to make it part of your plan. It wasn't our plan. It was soul-level agreement. Before incarnating, souls choose experiences that will serve their evolution. He chose to leave when he did. You chose to experience that loss. Both choices serving your awakening. Souls? Incarnation? Now you're telling me reincarnation is real too? Consciousness doesn't die, Sarah. It moves between bodies, between dimensions, between experiences. Your husband's consciousness is fine, more than fine. He understands now what he couldn't understand in physical form. I curled up on the barn floor, sobbing, not the quiet tears from before, deep, wrenching sobs that tore through my entire body. Everything I'd believed was wrong. Everything I'd known was incomplete. Everything I was something programmed into my cells by an alien species 2,000 years ago. And my husband, the man I loved, had died to activate it. The being sat nearby, silent, letting me shatter completely. Because there was no putting this back together. There was no unseeing this truth. I was changed forever, broken open. Ready or not, the awakening had begun. I didn't leave the farm for 5 days, didn't answer my phone when my sister called, didn't check email, didn't do anything but process what I'd learned. The being gave me space but stayed nearby, working on repairs to the ship. The first 2 days were pure anger. I raged at the being, at God, at Jesus, at the church, at myself for being so blind. I threw my Bible across the barn, tore the cross from my neck and hurled it into the dirt, screamed until my throat was raw. The being absorbed it all without defense, without judgment. Just let me burn. Day 3 was denial. I convinced myself I'd had a psychotic break, that the stress of isolation had finally snapped something in my brain. I researched symptoms of schizophrenia on my laptop, looked up grief-induced hallucinations, tried to explain away everything I'd seen with psychology and mental illness. But the being was still there. The living tree was still there. The ship was still there. And deep down, I knew it was real. Day 4 brought grief. Not for my husband this time, for my faith, for the innocent belief that had carried me through life, for the simple certainty that Jesus loved me, that God had a plan, that heaven was waiting. I mourned that version of myself, the Sarah who prayed every night and believed it mattered. She was gone, dead, and I cried for her like I'd cried for my husband. Day 5 brought something unexpected. Acceptance. Not happy acceptance, not peaceful acceptance, but the kind of acceptance that comes when you realize fighting reality is pointless. This was true, all of it, and I had to decide what to do with that truth. I found the being in the barn on the morning of day 6. The ship was nearly fully repaired. The crack was sealed. The glow was steady and, strong. Teach me, I said. The being turned those large eyes on me. Teach you what? How to use them, the codes, the abilities. If I have them, if they're activating, I need to know how they work. Are you sure? Once you start accessing them, there's no going back. You'll be fully awakened, fully aware. Life will never be the same. Life is already never the same. Show me. Over the next 3 days, the being taught me things that shattered the last remnants of my old worldview. It taught me that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but received by it, like a radio receiving a signal. It taught me that thoughts are things, actual electromagnetic patterns that interact with physical reality. It taught me that the separation between self and other, between mind and matter, between human and divine, is an illusion. And it taught me to pray differently. Not asking, the being explained. Declaring, feeling as if it's already real. Broadcasting the frequency of having, not lacking. Show me, I said. Think of something small, something you want to manifest, not because you need it, just to prove you can. I thought for a moment. A white feather. I want to find a white feather today. Somewhere unlikely. Now don't ask for it. Don't hope for it. Feel it. Feel yourself finding it. Feel the surprise. Feel the gratitude. Broadcast that frequency. I closed my eyes. Instead of praying, please let me find a white feather, I felt it. Imagined bending down and picking it up. The softness in my fingers. The surprise and wonder. The certainty that it meant something. I felt gratitude for finding it, and I held that feeling for maybe 2 minutes. When I opened my eyes, the being was watching me. Good. Now forget about it. Go about your day and watch. I spent the morning doing farm work, fed the chickens, weeded the greenhouse, didn't think about feathers. Around noon, I went to check the mailbox at the end of the long driveway, and there, stuck in the hedge beside the mailbox, was a pure white feather, large, perfect, in a place I'd walked past 1,000 times. My hands shook as I picked it up. I did this, I whispered. I actually manifested this. You accessed the quantum field and collapsed probability in your favor. The being's voice was warm, almost proud. That's what Jesus did constantly. That's what the codes allow you to do. You're beginning to activate. Over the following days, I practiced. Small things. A specific song on the radio. A call from someone I was thinking about. Finding money in an old jacket. Each success built my confidence, built my certainty, and I began to feel it. The connection the being had described. Not to an external God, but to everything, to the trees, to the earth, to consciousness itself. I understood now why Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He meant the creative power, the divine connection, the source itself. It's internal. It's always been internal. We just forgot, or were made to forget. The being's ship was fully repaired now. I knew it would leave soon. Part of me didn't want it to go. This impossible creature had destroyed my worldview, but given me something truer in return. What do I do now? I asked one evening as we stood outside the barn. Do I tell people? Do I try to explain this? The being looked up at the stars beginning to appear. That's your choice. But I'll warn you, most people aren't ready. They'll call you crazy, demonic. They'll attack you for threatening their comfortable lies. So I just stay quiet? Pretend I don't know? No. You live it. You embody it. You let your transformation speak louder than words. Others who carry the codes will sense something different about you. They'll be drawn to you. And when they ask, when they're ready, then you share. How many others are there? How many are awakening? Thousands now, soon millions. You're not alone in this, Sarah. The activation is happening globally. Find them, connect with them, build community, because what's coming will require collective awakening, not individual enlightenment. What's coming? The being turned to face me, the complete transformation of human consciousness, the end of the old paradigm based on fear, separation, and control, the birth of a new paradigm based on unity, love, and co-creation. It will be chaotic. Systems will collapse. People will resist. But it's necessary. It's evolution. And you're part of the bridge generation. I looked at this being who had crashed into my life and destroyed everything I thought I knew. Thank you, I said quietly, for telling me the truth, even though it terrified me. You're welcome. And Sarah, your husband, he's proud of you. He sees what you're becoming, and he's waiting. Tears filled my eyes. Waiting where? In the space between lives, ready to incarnate again when the time is right. You'll meet again. That kind of love doesn't end. It just changes form. The being left the next morning. I woke before dawn, knowing this was the day. I found it in the barn, doing final checks on the ship. The craft hummed with energy now, fully restored. More than restored. It seemed more alive than when I'd first seen it. You're leaving, I said. Not a question. Yes. My people know I've been here too long. They're concerned. I need to return. Will I ever see you again? Probably not. But you don't need me anymore, Sarah. You have the knowledge. You have the awakening codes activating. You have everything you need. The being moved to the ship and retrieved something. A small crystalline object about the size of a marble. It glowed with soft internal light. What is that? A tool. It amplifies consciousness. When you meditate, when you practice manifestation, hold this. It will accelerate your abilities, help you access the codes more easily until you can do it naturally. I took the crystal. It was warm in my palm, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. There's something else you need to know. The being's voice turned serious. Sharing this truth is dangerous. The church won't accept it. Neither will governments. There are power structures that depend on keeping humanity asleep. If you speak openly, you'll face resistance, ridicule, possibly worse. Then why tell me at all? Why awaken me if it's dangerous to share? Because the truth spreads person to person, not through mass announcement. You'll meet others who are awakening. You'll recognize each other, share with them, build networks, create community. That's how movements begin, quietly, organically. How will I recognize them? You'll feel it, an energetic resonance, a knowing. Trust that. And Sarah, there are online communities forming, people discussing these things, awakening experiences, consciousness shifts, alternative explanations for Jesus. Find them. You're not alone. The being moved toward the ship's entrance. Before I go, remember this. Jesus' message was never about worshiping him. It was about becoming like him. The church made him unreachable to keep you powerless, but his whole mission was to show you what you're capable of. Honor that. Become that. I'm scared, I admitted. What if I can't do this? What if I fail? You can't fail at being yourself. The being's dark eyes held mine one last time. You're not trying to save the world, Sarah. You're just living your truth. That's enough. When you shine your light, others find their way. And then it entered the ship. The opening sealed seamlessly. The craft began to rise, silent, defying gravity in ways that made my brain hurt. It hovered for a moment, and I felt one final message in my mind. Thank you for your compassion, for choosing to help rather than fear. That choice changed you, changed everything. The ship shot upward, accelerating impossibly fast. In seconds, it was a speck of light, then gone. I stood alone in my barn, holding a glowing crystal. My entire reality transformed. The weeks that followed were strange. I returned to my routine, but everything felt different. I saw connections I'd never noticed before, patterns in nature, synchronicities in daily life, numbers appearing repeatedly, songs on the radio matching my thoughts. It was like the universe was speaking directly to me, and I began to notice others. A woman at the farmer's market who caught my eye. Something passed between us. Recognition. She approached me later. "This is going to sound strange," she said, "but have you been experiencing unusual things lately? Dreams? Synchronicities? Like you're waking up to something?" We talked for 2 hours. She'd been having similar experiences, similar questions about Jesus and traditional religion, similar sense that something was activating inside her. We exchanged numbers, started meeting weekly. Through her, I met others. A former pastor who'd left his church after having visions. A scientist who'd discovered consciousness wasn't what she'd been taught. A young man who'd spontaneously developed healing abilities, all of them carrying the codes, all of them awakening. We formed a small group, not a church, not an organization, just people supporting each other through this transformation, sharing experiences, practicing abilities, discussing the terrifying implications of what we were learning. And I found my purpose. Not preaching, not converting, just being available. When someone was ready, when the universe arranged an encounter, I shared what I knew, planted seeds, let them decide what to do with the information. 3 months after the being left, I was working in my greenhouse when I felt it. That energetic resonance. I looked up. A young woman stood at the entrance, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know why I'm here," she said. "I was driving by. Something told me to stop. Something told me you'd understand." Understand what? That Jesus wasn't what they told us. That we're supposed to become like him, not worship him. That the power is inside us. I've been having these experiences, these abilities, and I thought I was going crazy or demon-possessed or... "You're not crazy," I said gently. "Come inside. Let me tell you what I know." That's become my life now. Living my truth, sharing when asked, connecting awakening souls. And I won't lie to you, it's terrifying. Living with this knowledge, knowing what the church hid, knowing what Jesus really was, knowing what we're really capable of. But it's also liberating. I'm not waiting for salvation anymore. I'm not begging an external God to save me. I'm accessing the divine power that was always within me. The same power Jesus demonstrated. The same codes he planted in humanity 2,000 years ago. And if you're reading this, if this story resonated with you, if something inside you recognized truth in these words, then you might be one of us. One of the carriers. One of the awakening ones. The return of Jesus isn't coming from the sky. It's happening through you. Through millions of humans remembering what they really are. Divine beings having a human experience. Creators who forgot they could create. Gods who were taught they were sinners. The terrifying truth is this: you are more powerful than you've ever imagined. The comfortable lie is that you need someone else to save you, and I can't force you to accept the truth. But I can tell you this: once you know, once you truly understand, there's no going back to sleep. The awakening is happening. The question is, will you be part of it?